Welcome to the show, the Dynasty Show, brought to you live here with the Hammer. What's
You
up,
know what
Hammer?
time you know what time it is, Keith.
Oh man, so what has happened? I guess since last week, there hasn't been much news. I don't think since last week, as far as anything that's happening.
No, not a ton. The only major move, and it's not really dynasty related per se. The Kansas City Chiefs traded their best defensive back to the Titans, L'Jarius
Oh, I
Sneed.
saw that. Or they
So
signed him. Was it a trade? They gave him a contract, I think, though, right?
I don't know what the details are, but I
Yeah,
know they traded him. Like, if you signed him, why would you trade him?
he had a chance to sign, and they didn't sign him. Yeah. Daniel, what up, Barry? Barry in the building. What's good?
Um, there was some news in terms of the the officials, like the officiating, the rules changes. I don't know if you saw
That's
that. The
right. Yeah,
kickoff
yeah, the
changes,
kickoff. I
like
saw that, the kickoff, right?
yeah. So that was really interesting to see. I didn't really read too much into it as of yet, but from what I'm gathering, it's essentially going to allow for more kickoffs because the kickoffs were just dying basically. I guess they're trying to, increase the rate of kickoffs return actually being returned. So this way it adds that element because I feel like that's an element that is fun in the game. You know what I mean? Like there's been some memorable kickoff returns, not only in the regular season, but in postseason play as well that I can
Mhm.
remember. Obviously, guys like Devin Hester,
Right.
guys like Dante Hall back in the day, and those fringe guys who could be really good kick returners. That's a major part of the game. So I like it that they're trying to bring the kickoff back because the route they were going, they should have just started off at the 25 every time.
Yeah.
Like, don't even bother kicking it off. Just start off at the 25. So I do like that rule change. Apparently, if you get one out of two of your challenges, you get a third challenge, which is interesting.
I heard that too.
And they're also they took the hip drop tackle. I don't
Right.
I'm that sort of stuff when they do shit like that, it pisses me off because it's gonna turn into flag football. Like what when guys are moving as fast as they're moving and
How
defenders
big
are trying to right big strong fast all the elements, now guys have to start thinking about how they tackle. They already did the shit with the defenseless receiver, which I kind of understand a little bit more than this nonsense with the hip drop. Like, what? Because a couple of notable guys got hurt. Like, it's football. Guys are going to get hurt. And I'm not condoning or, saying that getting hurt is good. But, like, at the end of the day, like, what are defenders supposed to do? I don't understand it at all. So that was
Yeah.
something that I didn't like. So obviously I like the kickoff, how they're, trying to bring that back. I like the extra challenge. And then apparently they're going to have something essentially an eye in the sky for penalties. Like when they call those bullshit, like uh, hit to the head penalties, and it's clearly not a hit to the head. They'll be able
Mhm.
to have an eye in the sky that clearly says, "Hey, there was no contact to this guy's head," and they could flip that. So I do like that as well. Even if it adds a little bit more time to the game, I'd rather them get it right, especially in playoff situations or towards
Mhm.
the end of the season, because with only 17 games being played, every single game matters every single week. So you
And
can't
it's and
afford
it's
to lose a game on a bullshit call.
and it's big because it's not only like a first down, it's like the 15 yards, like you and that's huge, especially late in games when you're like a field goal away. And yeah, for sure. Okay. But yeah, I mean the hip drop. I mean, it's a shitty tackle, but I mean, sometimes what can you do? I mean, you have to
What are
try
you
and take
supposed to
them down
do?
sometimes, but guys are getting hurt from it, so it is a little bit dangerous. So, like, I understand that.
The
Um,
horse collar thing makes a lot more sense to me because if you're already behind a guy, you can't grab him inside of that. But if you grab a guy around his waist when you're behind him and bring him to the ground, what the fuck else are you supposed to do? Like I genuinely this really made me upset. It's really making me upset because what are you supposed to do? Seriously.
mhm,
And if a guy is like if you have Derrick Henry running downhill and you're a 6 foot, 190-pound cornerback, what are you supposed to do? What the fuck are you supposed to do?
Hop on
Honestly.
for the ride, big boy.
Right. Like,
Hop on for the
Jesus
ride.
Christ. So
You
I
know.
I I'm a fan of some of the things that they're doing. The hip drop tackle, not a fan of. But everything else, I'm pretty cool with. Approved 3 other rule changes: a prohibition of the swivel hip drop tackle, which we talked about, allowing teams to receive a third challenge, which I talked about. If there was a double foul during a down in which there is a change of possession, including if one of the fouls is a post foul possession, blah, blah, blah. The team last gaining possession will keep the ball. I'm not going to
Well, I
break
mean,
that down.
especially like when you're talking about like hits over the middle, right? Or from back in the day, right? And now it's like, protecting the receivers, and it's kind of like, you got to
That
protect yourself, bro. Like almost like, and that changed a lot of the game. Like, especially even Brady said, like, shit got like easier. Like, you used to not be able to throw the ball over the middle like that. And now, like, you can. So, very different now.
Yeah, I agree with some of it because there is a such thing as a defenseless receiver, right? Like if a quarterback throws the ball between the linebacker and the safety, or the two
Can't do it.
safeties over them, I understand, but like a guy's up in the air, I get some of that stuff. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was scrolling through my saved Instagram reels and I saw something I saved when they had Jacked Up, when they did that feature Jacked Up on
Oh, they
on
can't do
NFL
that
Live.
now. Yeah.
No, bro, I'm looking back at that. First of all, the foot it it's old because the footage is kind of grainy, but I'm looking at some of that stuff and I'm like, God damn, they used to like promote that shit, which
Mhm.
obviously now we live in this PC world where you can't hurt anybody. So, but yeah, some of the rules I'm okay with, some I'm not. It's the NFL trying to, I guess, keep their game kind of moving and fun and interesting. And listen, at the end of the day, it's about offense. Like we know what it is. It's about offense. So
Right.
we'll see how it goes. Oh, they also moved the trade deadline back a week in the NFL.
Hey, Kev in the building. What up, Kev? What's goody,
There he
Kev?
is.
What good guys leagues getting active this week? Trying to get there's a lot of people just trading away just garbage trying to make trades. But yeah, do you think Yak is going to increase with the rule change? Yeah, I mean possibly. I mean,
Absolutely.
it makes sense that it could. Do people stop doing it? I don't know. Is
But
it
that's
worth
the
giving up the tutty? Like fuck it, I'll
the
take the
15 yards
penalty.
and the penalty and the first down. Honestly, it's guys are going to have to start thinking, and when you start thinking out on that type of field and that in those situations, you're going to get hurt.
Mhm.
When you have to start thinking instead of reacting. And I think that's going to be something that people are already kind of fed up with a lot of the stuff that they've done in terms of rule changes, especially protecting quarterbacks. And listen, you can't breathe on a quarterback nowadays or else it's 15 yards. So I think a lot of defenders, man, like I'm a big fan of offense. Obviously, I love seeing a lot of points scored, but Jesus Christ, can we like get a little bit of resistance?
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Sure. Marty, what up, Marty?
Hey,
PB Dubs, what up, PB Dubs? He's not a fan of the rule change either. Yep. Yep.
it's
Nikki, what's
garbage.
good, Nikki?
What's going on,
What's
nerds?
what's going on, nerds? HN, yeah. Ryan, what's up, Ryan? Thoughts on sending Bateman for Dobbins in hopes he lands in Dallas? Long shot, and if he doesn't, I don't really mind losing Bateman. Yeah, I'll take the shot in the dark. Fine.
Yeah,
What can
Bateman's
Bateman be anyway at this point in time? I mean, yeah, I'll take the shot on Dobbins. Apparently, they said Dobbins is like bionic now.
oh,
That
here
he
we
looks
go.
really good, but he's got like no knee basically, or two knees actually. So,
I did see
it,
that.
it'll be we'll see. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. Nikki, new member. What's thank you, Nikki. Appreciate you, Nikki. Yeah, Dynasty Life is our main channel, and we have this show going also on Tuesdays on the 420 Fantasy Network as well. So shout out to Hus for letting us be on his platform as well.
Oh yeah.
We are like 3 seasons away from them just playing two-hand touch football. Yeah, I mean, it's rough, especially, like, the hitting thing because, like, you could really see the difference between, like, back in the day where you had guys like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and guys that were really just, like, controlling the football field of, like, where you
Mm-hmm.
can even operate on offense, and that totally changed, like, game plans, it changed situations, it changed routes, it changed just so much, and, like, all of that is gone, and being that we're a little bit older, we were at least around for that time where a lot of people, like younger people now, where they weren't really around for that. They don't understand or know that part of the game, what it was like, the chess match between like Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning, like that type of shit is, you won't really see that now, you know?
Absolutely. And what it does is to kind of take it a layer deeper, what it does is it puts more emphasis on coverage guys in the secondary,
Mhm.
like being able to play coverage because you can't just wallop a guy over the middle anymore. You know what I mean? So it puts more emphasis on having really good shutdown cover corners. So that's a byproduct of all the rule changes, but it's so damn difficult because now also too, even on the outside, you can't hit, you can't grab, you like there's a lot of that stuff. And listen, my biggest point was you can't like you have to be able to tackle people. You can't
Mhm.
start legislating tackling. The horse
Yep.
collar thing, like I said, the horse collar thing, I totally agree with because of it reaching inside a player's shoulder pads. Like I agree with that rule with that they put in a long time ago. But this nonsense with the hip drop, like what the fuck? I never even heard of a tackle called a hip drop until Mark Andrews got messed up from it, and they all of a sudden called
Yeah,
it a
that
hip
was
drop, and then that was the end of it. So this is infuriating for me, but at the same time, I'm still gonna watch. I'm still gonna love it. I'm gonna get pissed off when Quay Walker hip drops somebody and it's 15 yards and a first down.
oh,
It's gonna
that's
piss me
another
off.
thing, right? Chaotic, what's up, Chaotic? Some players get more yak, it will hurt them with another 15-yard flag to take
Hmm.
away points. I don't know how it truly is going to affect the overall point. I don't think it's enough for us, like fantasy wise, that it's going to affect
To
that
worry
much.
about it.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. Isaac in the building. What up, Isaac from our hometown? Was good, Isaac.
Repping the hood.
8 minutes step up or shut up season. Yeah, I mean,
Not feeling
I don't
Bateman.
know. Devalues the linebackers. I can see that.
Oh, for sure.
Philip in the building. What up, Philip? Totally invalid. So bad. My bet flops and it's gone by 25. Yeah, I mean,
I hope so.
we'll see.
It's a reaction move.
We
Like
shall
it's
see.
not you don't like the horse collar is kind of premeditated in a sense where you actually have to reach up and grab a guy inside his shoulder pads and
Mhm.
drag him while he's way in front, well, not way in front of you, but in front of you, right? That's a little more premeditated. That this hip drop, quote unquote, tackle is reactionary. You just do what you wrap your hips. And what if you wrap the guy up at the top and he's up high and he's running and your hands slide down to his hips and take him down by the hips? Like
Mhm.
what? I'm about to lose it because it's infuriating, bro. Honestly.
Bro, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, today we are talking about four guys.
Yep.
They're actually all wide receivers in the same kind of range, which was interesting. I was like, Hammer, you pick two, and I'll pick two. And I was like,
And
oh,
we didn't
okay.
share. We didn't really. I think you shared your two with me first, but
I don't remember. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay. Is they're all guys in kind of that same range, that big kind of tier. But we're gonna be talking about DK Metcalf, we're gonna be talking about George Pickens, we'll be talking about T. Higgins and Zay Flowers. So we'll be talking about all of those guys tonight. Bogey in the building. What's up, Bogey? Um, but yeah, any other questions out there before we start talking about any of these guys? Throw them out there real quick. I am currently in the middle of trying to attain Justin Jefferson.
oh, here we go. You still trying to pull that trigger?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. This is a different league now.
That's funny. He has to get him some JJ.
I had traded him away in one league, so I'm trying to just at least get him in another. I've got a bunch of Chase and CD shares, so trying to get a JJ. But
Do it.
last move was 205 on Elijah Moore for Kincaid. I have Hawk and needed to get his replacement on my roster. 205 on Elijah Moore for Kincaid. All right. Yeah, I'll take that.
That's not that bad. 10
I'll
team,
take
only one
that.
quarterback.
For sure, then. What you offering for JJ? So I was offering the 103, the 108, and Baker Mayfield for Justin Jefferson and Geno Smith. Um, and we're like close, and I might have to just take Sam Darnold instead, which
Sammy
I was in the
D.
middle of. I was actually it's actually in the middle of trying to send it over, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll just take," because I've got like it's a 1.75 tight end premium. I got McBride, I've got Laporta, I've got Josh Allen and Jared Goff. So if I'm able to add like a JJ, I've got
Whoever
a
thought
nice core of
whoever
guys.
whoever thought we would be talking about the JJ Sammy D stack. Ooh,
Right?
I'm fucking
I don't
dead.
103 would not be I don't think would be Marvin Harrison. I don't think. It's probably either gonna be Neighbors or with a second QB. I think Marvin Caleb would be going 1 and 2. Um, I've got Baker as my 3rd QB, so I'm not desperate for a QB at all. And being that I have Josh Allen, it's like I kind of feel comfortable he can kinda carry like a and I still got a good QB
Mhm.
too, so
Listen, at the end of the
still work.
day, when the way I measure trades for the most part anyway, is if you get the best player in the trade, you're on the plus side.
It's a lot to give up, but my thing about the trade is it solidifies a core of guys that I can build around, and I've got an extra 25 first for next year. So it just gives me a core of guys that I can build around now and that are young
Right.
and that are gonna produce right now. So it keeps me in contention at the same time. So
For sure.
that's why. CPAT went to Pitt. Yep. What's his name? Just couldn't help himself, could he? Had to bring along one of his boys.
Arthur Smith, he
Had to
couldn't
bring
help
along
himself.
one of his boys.
Well, he saw the rule change they made and they signed Cordell Patterson right away. For Patterson does kickoff returns, right?
Mhm. Yep. Absolutely. All right, who we talking about first here, Hammer? Who you wanna go with first?
It's up to you.
Tyler, Chase Brown, and Justin Hill, Herbert, and the 104. I probably have Herbert. I'd probably rather have Herbert in the 104, honestly. I mean, Kyler is probably the main guy that I want here, but having the 104 is valuable. Like, what can you do with that? What can you break that into? Do you take a player there? What's the rest of the team look like? You know?
I was listening to I think Get Up this morning or one of those shows, and they were talking about the Cardinals trading Kyler Murray to move up, take a quarterback, trade him to Minnesota,
Okay.
get the 111. They have the 104. You could package that and move up and take a quarterback. Take Jaden Daniels or take, something like that. So that was interesting. Little
How far down? Like, let's talk about Herbert. Like, how far down do we really push Herbert? Like, I understand he's got no weapons really.
that we
Um,
think. I mean,
that
but
we think, I guess. And I mean, until they draft somebody, I guess maybe. But like, where do we
but
have like how far down rankings? Like, is Herbert? Like, can you really push Herbert down? Like,
I think he's still in the top 10, but I wonder, like, there are other guys that are more intriguing, you know what I mean? And if you look at the lack of weapons or the lack of perceived weapons, I should say, I think he's definitely still in the top 10, but his value's definitely taking a hit. Obviously, we know he's still an awesome quarterback. Are they at 105? They're going to take a skill player. Is it Bowers? Is it Neighbors? Odunze? Like, they're going to take a skill guy because clearly there's a need there opposite
okay.
QJ. Um, So yeah, so they're gonna take a skill guy, but listen, a young guy takes time to grow. He doesn't. They don't always come out and be Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Puka. Like they're not all those guys. So
Mhm.
um, I think he's still in the top 10 though.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a 104 pick like difference between Herbert and Kyler. I'm not even counting the running backs because they don't necessarily even matter really. Like I think that's the biggest thing. It's like I don't think I can pay the 104 on top of Herbert like to go and get right to go and get Kyler.
No, I mean, you talking about dynasty or are you talking about
Yeah. So
for the
what
right?
side you want? The Herbert and
Oh yeah,
Herbert and the
yeah, yeah.
104 for Kyler. So
No, I'd still keep Herbert in the 104.
that's what I'm saying. And we know what he can do with like with weapons. Like we know he can he
And
can
sometimes
throw
without,
he can
he
throw,
could still
we know he can hit that 40 tutty mark.
because even when a lot of those weapons were in and out of the lineup, he was still producing at a decent clip. You know what I mean? I
Much
listen
as he could.
at some point, your lack of weapons is going to hurt you, but obviously the talent is still there, and I think they're going to get some skill guys. So in this draft, so we'll see what happens. But like I said, still in the top 10. I'd be on the Herbert 104 side here.
Yeah, me too. Kick return GD leader. Yeah, Patterson Marty said he heard that rumor too. I mean, we heard that rumor last year too with Kyler, you know.
Well, now with
That's true,
with
kidda.
Ari-
What up, kidda?
with Arizona kind of being in that 104 spot, they could reset the quarterback clock, right? By going up and getting a rookie. Kyler Murray's an asset that the Vikings, if you're the Vikings, are you doing that?
Getting Kyler, I mean, yeah, if that's a
There you go.
possibility, but is that a possibility? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. They came out and said how much they like Kyler and all that. So I don't know.
It looks like a pretty
I don't
much
know.
full rebuild in Arizona. So why are they going to have this highly paid quarterback and they're not really going to go anywhere?
I mean, that's true, I guess. I guess we'll
That
see. I
that would
mean,
shake up the draft.
some crazy shit is gonna happen. Like, I mean, shit happened last year. Something's gonna happen this year. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen, but we'll see. We shall see.
Mhm.
All right, first guy. Who you want to talk about, Hammer?
Uh, we could go T Higgins if you want.
Let's go. All right, let's talk about T. Higgins. Obviously, getting the tag right.
Clearly not happy about it.
Not happy about it. I don't know why. I don't know what his beef is. He's apparently complaining like that they're not still in talks or trying to offer him anything. But he's got to somehow realistically be like, I don't know if they can necessarily afford me here, right? You've got to take some kind of a pay cut if you're going to stay, or to make it stay to make it work. So rough situation. But now he wants to get traded. So where's he going to go? I mean, we just saw the Panthers go out and get Deontay.
Mm-hmm. The Bears got Keenan.
So the Bears got Keenan. So I mean, where realistically is he going to get traded? I don't think he goes anywhere. I think they're just going to make up. He's going to play out this season, and then we'll figure out what happens going into next season. But at least for this season, he's going to be with Joe Burrow. Hopefully, obviously, anything can happen. But I'm going to go under the assumption that they're just going to keep him because I don't know if necessarily a team wants to really go up and pay right now. Obviously, that
The
can
pro-
change during the draft or on draft night, right? Obviously, though, something can change, but I think he's going to wind up staying there for this particular year. And like, I'm excited for him to be, one of those high end, like wide receiver twos. Like, we want that best case scenario, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy, right? That's been kind of
yep.
one of those main things with T is just not being able to stay healthy, not being able to stay on the field. There's been a lot of movement with T Higgins in dynasty leagues throughout this whole season and into this off season.
Because of
He's
the
a very
uncertainty.
hot, like a
Yeah.
hot commodity in some cases, not so much in others, but Yeah, I mean, what are you feeling with T?
So I was looking up some, T Higgins information. Obviously, we know he requested to trade, but what's really interesting is according to Sleeper 3 days ago, Jeremy Fowler noted that the Bengals are willing to listen to offers. So that kind of ties into what you were talking about with the draft, where listen, if a team, a team looks around and they don't end up getting somebody they like in the draft, would they pivot and say, "Hey, listen, we'll offer you a 2 and a 4 for T Higgins." But the what's interesting about the T Higgins thing is it's a lot of those situations with a lot of these guys on the franchise tags, right? Where you would have to give up something for him and then you're basically forced to pay him because you already gave up
Mhm.
significant draft capital to acquire him. So you're not going to give away a 2 and a 4 for a 1 year rental or something like that. So essentially you're giving up a 2 and a 4 hypothetically, and now you're going to have to pay him market value, which you're probably looking at 15, 18 million, somewhere in that range.
Mhm.
So that's going to be really interesting. And I'm looking at some of the teams kind of in that 15 to 20-ish range. And you got teams like Denver, they're at 12, but you got teams like Denver, you got teams like New Orleans. I don't think Seattle would do it. Jacksonville would be interesting. The Rams, I don't really see the Rams doing it, but it'll be interesting. Buffalo would be a really good landing spot considering
Mhm.
Diggs is getting a little bit older. They've never really had that kind of guy opposite Diggs. So Buffalo would be super, super interesting. So just a couple of teams there to kind of keep an eye on if the Bengals decide. But like you said, at the end of the day, I don't think they trade him. However, it's gonna be tough, man, because do you wanna lose him for nothing? And I know there's, like, compensatory
100%.
picks and stuff like that, so
Mhm.
but do you wanna lose him for nothing, or do you wanna kind of give him up and not have that dynamic player opposite
Yeah.
Jamar Chase? It's a pickle,
Or
bro.
or do you want to, yeah, you might lose him and get nothing, but if you play out this season, like, you've got a much better chance of winning a Super Bowl with T. Higgins than you do without at this particular moment.
I would agree.
So, maybe they're just okay with cutting their losses if they think they've got a legit shot at, a Super Bowl.
I would agree.
So,
So those are some interesting teams that I thought, could probably use a number 2 type, a high-end number 2
and
type receiver that's potentially a number 1.
mhm. And then dynasty wise, like, I mean, if you have him on your squad, like, you're not letting him go for anything less than a first, right? But you don't really necessarily happy to even spend late first on him right now with guys like, with guys like Brian Thomas and Xavier Worthy that are going to be, particularly drafted high. So
Mhm.
it's a rough situation with T, are you buying or are you selling? Are we holding? I mean, it's
I think I'm holding right now, and I would be on the buy and hold because listen, a lot of guys, especially on that franchise kind of, prove it type year, they usually have pretty big seasons. So remember Mike Williams a couple of years ago when he was, basically a free agent to be. Now, obviously, it's not the greatest comp because he always gets hurt, but similar to that situation where I think T. Higgins is in for a pretty big year. He really can't afford to miss a ton of games because any games he misses, that's just going to hurt his value on the open market if it comes down to that. And and the Bengals have the looming Jamar Chase contract.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been trying to get Higgins. I think I have him in two of my
Th-
leagues, and
They probably
people
feel
want
like
to
he's
get
a
him,
better
but they don't
value.
necessarily
Yeah,
don't necessarily want to pay up for him. And it's at that point, it's like I gotta just at least hold for now. I mean, because once you start scoring points, then that value is going to go up even higher. So the best case is to just hold at the moment. I think
I
unless
would
you're
tend to
unless you're
agree.
getting something good, unless you're getting something good.
Do you like if T Higgins, let's say hypothetically, right? If T Higgins got traded to it's a team that really needs a number 1 wide receiver. Denver.
I think that no matter what, he is like a wide receiver 12 to 24, and he's just in that range with the rest of those guys that the real difference between those top guys, the top, end of the 12, 13, 14. Those guys just have the quarterbacks. Like, that's the only difference. They're all pretty good. They all can play, but the difference is just that little bit of production they get from the extra production they get because they have a good quarterback. Like, that's where we
Mhm.
always see the top guys finish. They have quarterbacks. Like, so, you know,
Yeah, so a
can he
couple of
be the number
people.
one guy? Can he be like the number one guy in a team?
That's the
Yeah,
question.
maybe he could, but can he finish as an actual wide receiver one in fantasy? Like, there can only be 12 guys, right? I mean, we talked about this the other day with all the rookies that are coming in, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
we did the wide receiver rankings last week, right? Up to like wide receiver 30. Still guys that we didn't have on there, like Christian Kirk and Hollywood Brown, and we only had three rookies on there. But how many top 36 finishes can there be? There can only be 36, right? So, like, some guys are going to be there, some are not. But I think T is in kind of that safe wide receiver 2 range where you can count on him as like your wide receiver 2, 3.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think that's where you want to have him. Like, can he be a wide receiver 1? Yeah, but let's not shoot for that kind of upside. Let's just be in the realm of, okay, he's going to be in that 12 to 24 range. Right now he's valued more into that 2024 range. So now for me is like a particular time where people are a little bit low on him maybe, and maybe now is the time to buy if you can get him for the right price, right? I mean,
Mhm.
just a few months ago, it was probably a lot easier to go get him than as it is now, as we're kind of getting just closer to the season. You see, as we start getting closer to the season, the younger guys that have potential are a lot harder to acquire, right? And those older guys, like, nobody wants them, and you can't even get rid of those guys for anything pretty much right
Mhm.
now until they start scoring points. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
totally agree, and I wonder, and a couple of people put some stuff in the chat about some places they'd like to see him go. New England is an interesting place, right? They don't have a ton of talent there. Looks like they're gonna draft a quarterback in the top 3. Do they have the second round ammunition to go up and get a T Higgins? So right now, New
Mhm.
England they have pick third number 34. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty good. You know what I mean? So
Chargers would be a nice spot too
Chargers would be
to put
fantastic.
in there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, that's actually a really good one.
yeah.
Chargers
Diaz in the
have
building. What up, Diaz?
Chargers have number 5 overall and number
Brooks
37
or
in
Benson,
the
how
se
far does that player rise up rookie draft board? So, if one of those top RBs like Brooks or Benson, how far does those guys move up the draft board? If Dallas selects one of those guys, they'll be into the back end of the first round. I think if any of those guys goes like second round to a Dallas, I think that they'll be pushed up into the first round of dynasty drafts. Even if maybe they go into the third round, like, I mean, I don't know. I expect them to be possibly second round picks, especially Dallas, a team that needs a running back. So it's possible they get pushed up right into that back end of the first round. So I would say maybe like the 109, 109, 110 area, possibly, depending on where some of those receivers land as well. So I would say probably the highest, like 109, 110, but most likely 111, 112, 201. At least that's what I could see for whoever goes to Dallas. I don't know if we can push them up that much further, depending where those receivers get drafted, right? If we're talking about first round draft capital for wide receivers, that's where, like, it starts to get tough, and you still might want to have that wide receiver over the running back just because it's running back. But going to Dallas, that's a juicy spot. Now, does that make that pick ultra valuable, right? Now, if somebody's going to want that running back. So now what can you turn that into is a whole nother, discussion or strategy.
Yeah, I think that's
What
a
do you
really
what do you
interesting
think?
point that you bring up because a lot of people, automatically they look at the player and not the pick value, which is an interesting way to look at it. And I couldn't agree more because then, if you wanted to flip that pick because he went to Dallas, somebody's targeting him at that pick, you can use that to your advantage. So that's a really interesting point.
But yeah. That's T. Did I get all the questions here? Make sure I hit on everything. Gee, I guess Atlanta would be sick. Yeah, Atlanta spent enough. I mean, they just spent on Mooney.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening. All right, who's the next guy we are talking about here? Let's talk about DK. DK has been he's kind of just like flying under the radar. Like nobody really cares about him at all. He's kind of stuck again in kind of like that wide receiver 2 range, right? High end wide receiver 2 to low end wide receiver 2, depending on the quarterback. And if you look at what he did
Still
last year, I mean, still finished as wide receiver 2, right? Wide receiver 21, but didn't
back
have
end
really
though.
that upside that he's had in the past. I mean, only 119 targets, so he's had his fewest targets since his rookie season last year. Now,
Hmm.
granted, the QB play was straight garbage, but 66 for 1,100 yards, 8 tutties, like not that bad, but you want to see like more catches, more targets. Now, can you blame that on the QB play? Can you blame that on having Tyler Lockett and JSN on the same field? I mean, there's a lot that can go into that, but I feel like he's again a bona fide perfect wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for your squad. He's going to stay in that wide receiver 2 range, even without a good quarterback, as we've seen. So if he does get a good quarterback, that's where you can see some of that high end wide receiver 2, maybe back end wide receiver 1 numbers. But I feel like he's pretty easy to get right now. He's very just attainable. Like really, he's only 26, right? And he's got another contract that he's going to be getting. So does he stay in Seattle or not? Right? That's another thing we have to start thinking about. Does he wind up moving to a new team, after this contract is up? So interesting to see, what happens with DK, but I'm a buy for DK. Like he's again a perfect wide receiver 2 under the radar. Like, can you move off of maybe some of these young guys like a Zay Flowers, like a Tank Dell, and go get a DK Metcalf, like and get a little something on top of it, like,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think something to take a look at as well is DK last year from a consistency standpoint was pretty damn good. In full PPR formats, he only gave you 3 games with single digit points. 3
Mhm.
games and he played 16 out of 17. So that's pretty damn good. And like you said, I'm cool with that. And he still has those outburst games. Week 13 against Dallas, 6 grabs for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like he
Mhm.
still has some upside in him. Now we're not crazy about the quarterback play. Obviously, they have Geno Smith, and they just picked up. Who the fuck did they pick up? They just picked up a quarterback as well. I don't remember who it was, but if that quarterback play is remotely close to what it was 2 years ago when Geno Smith kind of broke out and surprised everybody, then I think that, he can go back to being that 12 to 15 type of guy that you could count on for at least some wide receiver 1 production weeks. So, yeah, Kid has said Sam Howell. So that'll be interesting to see
They
if
did.
Geno Smith has a short leash. We know
Mhm.
Sam Howell could sling it around all over the place. We saw
For
him do it in
sure.
Washington last year. So that, if Geno Smith is out there stinking it up again, do we see Sam Howell come in and start slinging it all over the
Mhm.
place? And they have 3 really good wide receivers. DK, obviously, they brought Tyler Lockett back, and you talk about JSN. So I think he's a really, really good buy for you probably don't have to give up a whole lot considering the upside that's there.
Mhm. Facebook usage just real quick. You're not trading away Jamar Chase for that. So no. We don't even have to get into it really, but yeah, I mean,
Uh,
even with JSN coming up, like Lockett's gonna eventually be out of there, right? And then,
phased
like I
out
said,
a
right,
little
what
bit.
happens with DK's future? But I think he's still a safe wide receiver too, no matter what happens, on the other side with those other guys. So I think that's a big part of DK for me is he's at least gonna finish, back end wide receiver 2 at worst, and for the price that you can get him at.
And
That's something
listen,
that you can try and go after right now where, maybe it might only cost you a second and a piece to go get DK Metcalf. Maybe you down tier, like we said, from, any of those younger guys or Pittman or something like that. Pick up a first or some kind of asset on top of it. Like, we don't know how low people can really be on DK. So just go and inquire. If you're just looking for a good wide receiver two with wide receiver one upside weeks that's still young, that can still get another contract and move to another team in a better situation, or they can get a quarterback and finally be in a better situation, or maybe Sam Howell
Mhm.
starts slinging that thing, which I'm not exactly excited about because Terry McLaurin or Dotson that didn't do jack shit either. So we don't want that to happen now in Seattle.
Uh,
Um,
that's funny.
but yeah, I mean, he's wide receiver right now. DK's wide receiver 25 on keep trade cut. Wide receiver 25. Should he really be under a guy like Jordan Addison? I mean, we're talking about like a 1 year difference here now. Should he really be under a guy like Jordan Addison? Um, Zay Flowers, they're kind of like the same for me. I mean, Tank Dell, there's not a ton of separation. It's not like, oh, these guys are just going to way outproduce DK Metcalf because that's not what's happening.
Yeah, and just to
Yeah.
further your point, DK Metcalf has a really good floor because
Yeah.
in 5 seasons, the dude has 43 touchdowns. So
Or
he's
4 years.
basically
My bad. I
average.
said 4 years. I said 2 years. 4 year difference between Addison and Metcalf. My bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, so DK Metcalf in his 5 years so far, he has 43 touchdowns. That's almost 9 touchdowns
Mhm.
a season. And he's had
Scoring
seasons where
tutties.
he's had double digit touchdowns. So, and even in the season where he finished with his lowest total, which was 2 years ago, 6 touchdowns, he was still wide receiver 16 in PPR.
Mhm.
So DK Metcalf has a really, really solid floor. And I think that because he is a touchdown producer, he's kind of like Mike Evans in a sense. Obviously, I think Mike Evans is a little bit better and has a longer resume, but those guys that are red zone targets and they produce touchdowns are always going to have those really safe floors. They might not be as exciting as a Tyreek Hill or a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson or even an Amon-Ra St. Brown at this point, but he's still going to be really solid for you. And listen, if you could get him and slot him in as your wide receiver 2, that's solid. If he slots in as your wide receiver 3, that's a home run.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers we're going to talk about Zay Flowers actually as well. Mhm. Would trade D Kevin said he would trade DK for any of the younger guys.
I can understand that, but be specific? Like, because they're at a certain point, right? There's a certain limit that you'll bring up a guy's name and you'll say, all right, DK Metcalf, or like you said, Jordan Addison. Which one you taking?
Or if you can get a piece, like obviously the younger guy is going to be ranked higher or thought of more highly, right? But, what's the chances that Jordan Addison, keeps his value over the next few years? Where
No,
you're gonna get production from DK. Now, granted, you're not going to be expecting wide receiver one production, but if you can get a piece on top that can help you go and get another piece, like we talk about all the time, like, picking up a bunch of seconds and, you're buying those Mike Evans types or those older guys that are actually producing, during the season to give you that extra push when you need it.
for sure. And I think
So
that
as I'm with you, Kevin, as like I would rather have the younger guys, depending on the situation. Like if I can get DK and a plus on top of it, like I'll take the plus. I'm okay with that if I need production right now.
and DK's not exactly, getting ready to claim his social security benefits yet. He's still 26 years old. So
Mhm.
I know we tend to think of him as a little bit older because he's 26, but that I feel like that's right in the prime. And I know that we're connecting it to a quarterback. So if Seattle, if Seattle had Justin Herbert, how would we feel about DK? Right? Like that's kind of what's holding DK from truly having elite value is his quarterback situation, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, JSN's a decent one to buy right now. As I mean, people are down on him. Do you wait until during the year where maybe he doesn't isn't producing again and you can get him even cheaper? Yeah, maybe. But I mean, what if he does just start producing? What if, he comes out and the first couple games he's doing great or he's killing? Even the first game. What if he comes out the first game and does good? Then the value is going to be skyrocketed up again and it's going to be like, "Oh, look at what he can do." So, mm,
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely feel that. I'm the quarterback situation in Seattle is going to start to get interesting because that they're going to at some point, I think Geno Smith, and we haven't really talked about it a lot, but I think that Geno Smith leash could be fairly short, right? They have a new coach, they have a new regime in there for the most part. So, what's going to deal with Geno Smith? We always knew he wasn't the crazy long-term answer, but I'll be really interesting to see what Seattle does in the draft. Not a lot of, talk about Seattle doing much, but they could be one of those sneaky teams that makes a play or makes a trade. So, I'm real interested to see because that could vault guys like it's similar to the Atlanta situation, right? Where you're waiting for that prime time or, really good quarterback to show up to elevate those pieces. DK Metcalf, JSN, obviously Tyler Lockett to a lesser degree. So I think that's a really good comp is, what we were waiting for in Atlanta. I think if Seattle kind of figures that out, but like you said, the DK contract is going to be another thing coming up as well.
mhm. Yeah, and then what if DK goes to fucking the Chargers?
There you go.
Now
There you
you
go.
got him for half the price of what he's gonna be, even at if he goes there. Obviously that's
Exactly.
just wishful thinking, but or best case scenario, but that's a realistic thing that can happen. But all right, let's get into your next guy, Hammer. Let's get into George Pickens. Um,
Yeah.
23 years old, 6'3", 200. Makes a ton of contested catches. Some really
You're
good
not the
actually
biggest fan of
contested
George
catches.
Pickens, are you?
He is wide receiver 27 on keep trade cut. I like George Pickens as a player, but I think that there's still some things that he has to show in his game. Like he's got to show us that he can command those targets and get that separation. It can't just be I like catch all the time because you couldn't get open and the quarterback had to just throw it up to you. But, I just wanna see more from George Pickens, and he's kinda just in that range of, like, that danger range of where, like, if he doesn't produce as that top wide receiver, like, his value is gonna go down even more. So, can you get out? I think we talked about it last week, like, do you have an opportunity to get out now where he is looked at as that wide receiver 1, on that team? Is this now your opportunity where you can get out and tear up or even go sideways to somebody like DK Metcalf that you just feel more comfortable is going to give you at least solid wide receiver 2 numbers. Not that George Pickens isn't, but, can you pick up something on top, right? Another one of those guys. So, yeah, I mean, I like George Pickens, but at the same time, he's just one of those guys that I like to try and take advantage while I can. Because how much higher can he go? I mean, what if finishes as a wide receiver 1 this year, right? Where realistically does that put him? Does that put him into, like, the top 15?
That's still tough. Like you said, and add on the rookies on top of it, that's tough. That's tough.
You
But I
know?
will say this. I will say this. We've seen some pretty bad quarterback play out of the Steelers the last 2
This is
years,
true. Mhm.
especially last year. Especially last year. What if I told you George Pickens had over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, which isn't terrible considering the circumstances? 63 catches on 106 targets for 1,140 yards, 5 touchdowns. But the thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at some of George Pickens' stuff is 18.1 yards per catch. That means he's hitting home runs for you. Now, is he that was he that boomer bust guy last year? Absolutely. And looking at his game log from last year, he was way too inconsistent. Now, do you attribute that to what you say is he needs to get open consistently against man coverage, or was that a combination of the quarterback play, or both? Right? You could kind of look at it as both. But I think with the upgrade at quarterback, and just the system, right? I say this all the time is that I trust the Steelers to still be able to produce. And listen, the Steelers, I brought this up in previous shows. The Steelers produce good wide receivers. Like that's what they do.
Mhm.
So with all
True.
those things being said, I feel like and the new quarterback room, I don't see any reason why George Pickens can't fall into that back end wide receiver 2 range. Like
Mhm.
if he finishes wide receiver 22, 20, that wouldn't surprise me. And that would firmly sit him in that wide receiver 2 range. I would value him if I was buying, which I don't know if I would be. I'm probably more on the sell high because of the perceived value with the new quarterbacks, with Deontay out, all
Mhm.
that stuff like that.
Yep.
But but if I was to value him, if I was picking him up in a trade and say it was, I don't want to say a throw in, but say somebody was adding him on top of something, I would value him as my wide receiver 3 and hope he gives me that wide receiver 2 upside.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, the stats are good. I mean, deep targets, air yards. I mean, he's in the top 15. It's just
Like
like you said. I mean, how far up can he realistically go?
and and just to touch on the consistency, and listen, I understand the quarterback play, I truly do. But he's kind of the opposite of DK Metcalf because DK Metcalf was relatively consistent, whereas George Pickens, he had 4 top 12 finishes. So he had 4 wide receiver 1 weeks, only 4. Week 2 against Cleveland, week 5 against Baltimore, week 16 against Cincinnati, and week 17 against Seattle. Outs Other than those 4 weeks, he was basically wide receiver 38 to wide receiver 50, a bunch of wide receiver 44s, 47, 48, 50s in there. So I, you know, take from that what you will, but I think the perceived value, if you have him, is why I would be a sell. Oh, you got Russ coming in. Russ could throw the ball, still throw the ball down the field. Pickens is a big play guy. If you can turn that into a player plus or go sideways, like you said, from Pickens to DK Metcalf,
Yeah, I think Pickens right now is wide receiver 27 on Keep Trade Cut. So
and you said Metcalf was
he
25.
hasn't really jumped up rankings, but depending on your league, there are people that really like George Pickens. So, where I guess what kind of pick range are we talking? Let's talk about all of them, I guess. But George Pickens, what kind of pick range are we talking here that you take for George Pickens? Like he's probably in that late-ish. What are we talking? 109?
Maybe even a little bit
Not
later than
even
that. Just
110, 111. Like
that's
I
where
still
I was
take the
leaning.
108 or the 109. Like now, just thinking about it.
I was leaning
So
back end first, probably, early
gotta
second,
be.
depending on, somewhere in that range. But, listen, at the end of the
Somebody
day,
said it too.
he could be a guy that, you know, that pops off with Russ. You never know. If you want to hold and see if his value goes up, he has a good
Late
game or two.
first.
If he has a
Late
good game or
first,
two
two
with
late
Russ,
seconds, and a third for the 105. You traded George Pickens for a late first. Wait, what? For the 105? You got the 105? You gave up Pickens a late first and a second, maybe? I'm trying to read this song. I traded all that for just the 105. Okay, so for the 105, he gave up Pickens, a late first, a late second, and a third. Okay. You had to do that to get up to the 105. Yeah. Yeah. Kevin said sell, sell, sell. Yeah. Now is the time, especially with with a quarterback there for the moment. And do we feel any type of way with George Pickens as being the wide receiver? Like it's not like London was going crazy or Pitts or anybody over there as well. Like and now Patterson has come in. Like is Patterson gonna take all the damn targets? Like I mean
we're really asking that question. The fossilized carcass that is Cordell Patterson. We're not doing that. No, we're not doing that.
But yeah, Kidda said he liked to trade. I like to trade too, Song. I'll take the 105 for all of that. I'm okay with giving that up. I've said this year we find out what Pickens is. Yeah, it's got. I mean, for sure, it has to be
The
right.
opportunity is there. So now does that would you be like, say somebody is only, say the market in your league is only a early second, 201, 202, something like that. Will you be inclined to hold and wait for him to have a couple of good games because he has, what we perceive to be solid like better quarterback play?
I'd be inclined to give up something else with George Pickens to get something. I'd be inclined
All
to
right, I'm
move
just
something
asking.
else. But
I'm just
yes, I mean,
asking.
you could say you could hold at that point. I mean, if the best you can do was like an early second, then I'll hold at that point. I'll
Yeah.
hold at that point. But can you add something else to try and get, like Song had to do? He had to add a late first, a second, like do what you need to get him off while you can.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm just, just kind of gauging and looking at what the landscape could be, because some people
Mhm.
would probably feel like, hey, Pickens' perceived value is a lot higher than an early
No,
second. If I hold him, can his value get me up to the 109, the 108 during the
yeah,
season? For the 2025 draft, it's possible.
maybe. I mean, let's say Pickens' best case scenario, right? Let's say he finishes, I don't know, wide
Wide receiver
receiver
18,
15.
8,
Let's say
18.
it's
Yeah, I was gonna
like
say 15 to
15. Let's
18.
say 12 to 18 range. I don't know, somewhere in there, high end wide receiver too. Where the hell do we put him then?
That's tough because he's still young, right? We what if
I guess
they
it depends on the
what if
quarterback too, right? I
right?
mean,
So the
is Russ
scenario
playing
is
well? Is it Fields? Like,
right.
there's so
So
much
what
that
if
has to go right. There's so much that has to go right here, I think is the point I'm trying to make.
So what if, and obviously a big what if, but what if, Russ plays terrible or whatever the case is, Russ isn't the quarterback by week 4. Justin Fields comes in, they're balling, and now you got Justin Fields and George Pickens. You feel
Yeah,
pretty good about
okay.
that?
Good scenario. Do we feel good
So,
about that? If he's still finishing as a top wide receiver. Now, can he? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Are we just too low on him? Like, is he a buy?
um I don't think he's a buy right now, just because the perceived value, right? With the quarterback room change and no Deontay. So his value is pretty high, and he didn't have a bad season. Like, when
He
you look at
didn't.
the final tally, considering how shitty that quarterback play was in Pittsburgh, like, that's a good season, and the quarterback play
Mhm.
is going to be better. It can't be any worse than it was last year with
It's true.
Russ and Fields. So look at that for what you will, and there are outcomes where this turns out to be Pickens playing well and being a
Mhm.
good value.
Yeah. Kidda said I was the trade partner.
Mhm.
I'm with you, PB Dubs. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Like, shit is not always gonna hit
Yeah.
how we want it to, right? So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like there's a range of outcomes for Pickens. Now,
Mhm.
I'm not on the side that he's gonna finish as a top 15 wide receiver. It doesn't mean I don't like him. I still think he could finish as a top 24 wide receiver. Like I think that's
Mhm.
possible, but I'm just not as high as I don't know. I'm just not as high. I'm just a little more on the let's play it safe kind of side with him. It's just one of
Yeah.
those, like, why should I take the if I don't have to, why should I take the chance? Like, we talk about the market all the time, right? That's all it is, I just wanna play the market, and I have a piece in Pickens where maybe things do go well, maybe things don't go well, but you know what? I have a chance to minimize that risk and go and get something else that's more concrete, whether that's adding, whatever to Pickens and going to get, a pick or a certain player, but
Mhm.
I think that's like my main thing about it. It's not necessarily like just the player in general. It's just everything all together. I don't need to take the risk if I don't need to, you know?
No, it's definitely a risk, but listen, we also still forget he's 23. So, like, there's still room to improve. Like there's room to grow. There's room to, him to become a better receiver. And like I said, they have a good organizational structure, and the quarterbacks are going to be better. So there is a scenario where he does become that, wide receiver 18. There is a path to that.
GP Dub said y'all are crapping on GP. Nah, I don't
Mhm.
mean to. I just, we got to give all the, got to give everything that can possibly happen. Or, that's just how I feel about Pickens. It's just one of those guys where if I can get out, I'm okay with getting out. And if he plays well, like that's fine. But I was still able to tear up and get the guy that, the guy that I wound up wanting. If you can re-roll Pickens for any top 50 NFL draft pick, do it. Have him in several leagues. Nobody wants him, even after Deontay got traded and Russ got there. Tear up or re-roll for Diaz. Okay, yeah, I feel you, Diaz. I'm with you on that.
It's an understandable perspective, but and that's part of the reason why I picked Pickens to talk about, because as you see, with our subs, like some people are on one side, some people are on another side, some
Yeah.
people are on the hold
Mhm.
side. So it's a really good topic. And considering all of the change around him, as we talked about, quarterbacks, new quarterback room, Deontay getting shipped out, are they rolling out the red carpet for Pickens to
Mhm.
say, "You're the dude, take us home"?
Everything is set up for it. Everything is set up for it. And I'm not saying that he's not going to hit. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it's just one of those situations we could take advantage of.
Yeah, no,
And more
totally
time,
agree.
and I wanna be and I'd like to just minimize the risk if I can, that's all.
For
Like
sure.
we did last year with George Pickens and like we did last year with Christian Watson, right? Just they have that value, take advantage at that particular time and move up. So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Raiders for life, what's up? Which side? 12-team superflex, tight end, pre Burrow, Higgins, Smith, Aaron Jones, or Bryce Young, Waddle, Burks, 101, 109, and 201. 12-team Superflex, tight end premium. Okay. Burrow, Higgins, Smith, Aaron Jones, Bryce, Waddle, Burks, 101, 109, and 201.
I'm going Burrow, Higgins, Smith. Aaron Jones doesn't mean much. Burks doesn't mean much. The 101 is Caleb call it with this particular team, but I have the studs. I have the three studs I could build around. Well, two studs, and you could consider Higgins a stud as well. Give me the three known
Mhm.
commodities and let me roll from there.
Yeah, because even if you get Caleb, and you got Caleb and Bryce, you get the extra QB, but Waddle, and then you have the 109, but you're losing Higgins and you're losing Smith. Yeah, that's a lot to
I'm keeping my studs
might
in
have to be
place.
yeah, I might have to be on the Burrow side on this one too. It's just interesting because you got the 101 in there, and then you do got Bryce Young as well. But like, what can you turn the 101 into? That's a whole nother thing, right?
Is that Marvin? Is it a quarterback? And the thing that, especially for me with this, like Waddle, fine, but would you rather have Burrow or Bryce Young? Not a question. Would you rather have
Yeah, for sure.
Devonta? Would you rather have Higgins or Waddle? That's obviously a toss up. But then you put in Devonta Smith. So Burks, no, thank you. The draft capital does make it interesting. I will say that, but you have some pretty good studs. And if you're trying to make this trade, like if this is a trade, Raiders, like what are you trying to accomplish? I guess is the real question, because you could parse this
Mhm.
down. And if you want to just trade a T. Higgins or a Devonta Smith, I'm okay with that and trying to tear up from that instead of just mishmashing it around.
What are you trying?
So
Yeah, what are you trying to get here? Are you just trying to get the 101 or what?
because when you end up doing trades like this, and Raiders, if you haven't seen our trade kind of episode, I would definitely go take a look at that and some of the tips that we give you on trading. And one of my biggest tips is keep it to 4 players maximum total in the entire trade. Because when you start getting into this stuff, you really can't see what you're trying to accomplish, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, there's just a lot going on. So yeah, what are you trying to get out of it? And then let's focus on trying to get that. There's just a lot of moving pieces that I don't know how much better that necessarily will make you. Unless you can get a shit ton for like for the 101, which you should be able to, but as Watkins, wide receiver one in Pittsburgh. Mystic Flame, what up, Mystic? Have Lamar and Purdy in Superflex start 11. Have the
It's nice.
101. Do I go Marvin or Caleb? Other wide receivers are Chase and Devonta with QJ and then trash.
Well, that's a hell of a good position to be in. That's number one.
You also have the 106 as well. So yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, I've always been saying like I can go either way. You can go with Marv or you can go with Caleb, depending on kind of what you need. I'm okay, like either way. I mean, but typically you want to take the quarterback. I mean, you've got Lamar, you've got Purdy, two good quarterbacks, but Lamar can be a little injury prone, right? He's a guy that runs the football. He can be a guy that gets hurt. So do you just take Caleb there and say, all right, now I've got the three quarterbacks. You got Chase, you got Devonta, and then a bunch of trash. I mean, do we
I
can we
think
do we split up? Can we split up the 101? Like, can we get like the 102, the 103, and another first? Like, can we split up this 101 into a few different firsts?
well, also Mystic put they have the 106 as well. So
Yeah.
you
Can you
can
move
still
down to the
get
102 or the 103 and just take whoever, be happy with who was there? You know what I mean? And pick up extra assets on top of that.
and also do you know if Caleb is the consensus 101 like in your league? Reach out to people who might need a quarterback and then you can maximize, and again, we're going back to the trade, our strategies on trades. You can shop around that 101 to a team that really needs a quarterback and maximize that value. Like you said, get to the 102, get to the 103, and then you could still get a wide receiver plus something else. You could probably still get another quarterback as well, right? If you wanted
He
to go
said the
with
102. He said
Daniels
the
or Met.
102 is def going Marv. So,
Okay.
can you who else would want Marv? Like, can you trade that person to fucking 101? They jump ahead of that guy. So you move back to the
And you get
103. Now Marvin comes off. Now this guy's pissed he didn't get Marvin. So he takes neighbors because he goes to the Chargers. And then you get left with Caleb, but then you still got the 106. And maybe you have some other pieces on top of that if you're moving down. Like, can you get some other first too? So there's a few different ways that maybe that you can play it, but I don't think there's a definitive like go Marvin or go Caleb. I think it's just more, it's preference at this point. I mean, Caleb is the quarterback going to a great situation as we know so far. I mean, you never know. We get to draft day and then fucking Bears trade their
well,
pick.
because
But
because because it's the Bears, it's never a great situation going in. He has to make it a good situation.
I mean, I would say
On on
he's got
paper,
weapons at least. But
it's a good situation. I agree.
I know how everybody wants Marv, so but can you live with just taking neighbors or Odunze later on, like just moving back a little bit, picking up more assets, getting that wide receiver, and then you
I'll be
still might be
honest.
able to draft a quarterback. Like you still could get maybe JJ at 106 or something like that. So
I'll be honest, I think because Mystic, your team is good, like at the top, you can afford to trade back to that 102, 103 and just make your team even better because you have
mhm.
more assets now as opposed to just, going ahead and making that 101. Depending if you want Marv, then take him. I would have no problem with that. But I think because you have really good studs at the top of your team, it would be good to trade down to the 102, the 103, get additional assets on top of it and make your team that much stronger overall.
Mhm. 6.
And the 106 is still valuable there as well.
Mhm. Well, what can you get with the 106 and what else, like anything else on your team? Or Lamar or Purdy, can you get another? Adia says it right here. Actually, can I trade Brock in the 106 for an elite wide receiver? Yeah, I was just trying to get into something like that. Can you trade one of the quarterbacks with the picks and get an elite wide receiver? And now you still got the 101, so you can draft Caleb to hop right in that place.
Yeah,
That's
that's
another
not a
good way.
bad.
Another good way. So you've got plenty of options.
There's a ton of options here. You're in a really good position.
Hmm. Or even this too for the 102, 103. Brock and the 106 for the 102, 103. You could do that too. Then you get Marv and Caleb.
If the person that
If
has
you
the
can,
102 also has
yeah,
the 103.
all
Yeah.
kind of depends on what those teams roster construction is. But Raiders said his team was on the older side, and depth is lacking. Took the first year of the league, and took second year. Thinking about flipping the 101 for a haul, then flipped Henry for White. Okay.
I wouldn't flip the 101 for Brees Hall. I wouldn't do that.
No, I think he said for a haul. For a haul.
Oh,
Just a hole in
I
general, I
thought
guess.
I saw Hall, so I thought he meant Brees Hall. Yeah, I mean, you can do that. See what's out there. I think that's the best route to go, especially at this point of the season where those draft picks are super valuable, especially those top end ones. I think as we get closer to the draft, and we're essentially 4 weeks away, which is awesome, right? That those picks are becoming super, super valuable, right? The
Mhm.
combine is pretty much finished, right? A lot of the pro days are going on. Literally, the talk for the next month is going to be the draft. That's essentially what it's going to be. So take advantage
Right.
of that, shop the pick around, see what people will, come off of for that pick, and then make something happen if that's the route you want to go.
What can we expect out of Chase Brown and Jerome Ford?
Your boy Chase Brown.
Well, I think that they're just like most of the rest of the league in kind of those like RB2 flex roles where like they're going to have a decent role, they're going to be decently productive and you know, if you're going like no RB strategy or like hero RB, like these are some of the guys you can just, rock out in that RB2 slot or, but
Yeah,
I
and the
think they're
biggest
both, yeah, they're just going to have a role. That's just it. They're possibly top 30 running backs.
But
Possibly, but you never know.
the the thing we talk about all the time, and this is so important, and this is something you've been preaching since basically we started fantasy football, especially dynasty, is the number two guy is one injury away at that position from becoming ridiculously valuable. So
Mhm.
I think we can expect these guys to have a role, like you said, but if there's an injury to the guy in front of them, they become found gold. And I think that is why those guys are super, super valuable. And, Jerome Ford, super valuable last year. Zach Moss, super valuable last year. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what we're going to see going forward because running backs are going to get hurt and those number two guys are going to get more opportunity and become better values.
I mean, they're great guys to have to kind of fill in. Like Jerome Ford, maybe he has a bigger role at the start of the season because,
Hmm.
with Chubb, like, is he 100% coming back right away? Do they kind of ease him in, or do they kind of just split the load between them? I don't think I don't think Chubb is coming back and they're just handing him 20-25 carries. Like
No,
I don't
absolutely
think
not.
that's happening. So I think Jerome Ford, will have a role. Chase Brown, same kind of thing. I mean, they've got Zach Moss, but I really like Chase Brown. I think he's explosive. He can catch. I mean, so I think he'll have a good role as well. A guys that you can kind of throw in the flex or play as your RB2 when you need to, or you need a guy to throw in there. They're just gonna give you like a decent points. They'll give you a couple good games, but I have a lot of Chase Brown and Jerome Ford
Because they're not that
sitting right
expensive.
sitting right in my RB2 slot, and in some cases my RB1 slot.
Uh, love you some Chase Brown.
Uh, I love any running back that can give me some decent production that doesn't cost me a ton, that doesn't cost me a ton.
You
These
could
are
use
guys
those
that are gonna
resources
score.
elsewhere.
These
Yeah.
are guys that are gonna score like a decent amount of fantasy points, hopefully anyway. Mystic said, "All right, this is team. Good. Burrow, G. Willie, Kittle. Oh, okay. Give Joey B, G. Willie, and Kittle. Get Kyler Love 203. His QBs right now are Burrow, Dimes, Levis. Don't need to start a tight end. Flex spot. Okay. Also have the 103, 105. Wide receivers are buns.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Only
awesome.
have Wilson, Amari, and Cooks.
That's awesome. Wide receivers up.
So you'd get
Fun.
Kyler and you'd get Love and the 203.
And you still have the 103, which is you guarantee yourself a quarterback.
It is a start 11. So you'd be getting Kyler and Love, and then you still have the 103 and the 105.
Oh, that's tough to part with Joey B, man, and Garrett Wilson for that matter.
I mean, you got Joey B and Garrett Wilson. I mean, he does need another quarterback, though. And in this case, he's getting two. He's getting Kyler and Love.
So he wouldn't even really have to take a quarterback with that 103, 105. He could, but you could really build out your team pretty nicely.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one for me as well. Anytime it involves getting rid of Joe Burrow, I get a little sensitive, but man,
We
Kyler
need a
Love,
quarterback. Do we just take whatever quarterback's there at 103, and then you got Joey B and that quarterback?
and then the 105, you could still get yourself a wide receiver at 105.
And you still get to keep Garrett Wilson. I mean, listen, I think I like to do quarterbacks. I might like the
It's hard.
quarterback part here because you're getting Kyler and you're getting Love, and you still get to keep the 103 and the 105. Like, I'm splitting Joey B into,
Kyler and Love.
Kyler and Love, but I'm still able to keep I don't have to pay. Mm, I guess Kittle would be is Kittle worth the 203? Then it's Kyler and Love for Joey B and Garrett Wilson. Shit. What do you guys think out there? Help us out here. What are you guys
He's
thinking on
stumped.
this?
He's stumped. He has
I
no
think
idea what to
I think
do.
I like the 2 quarterbacks, and I get the 103 and the 105. Like, I probably rather have the 103 instead of Garrett Wilson, like, when you're looking at it that way. I can go either way on this really, because you do have the picks. I mean, can we trade, like, the 105 and Amari for, like, a top wide receiver or
You could still, like you said, you still
what
have
else
that
can we do?
103. That 103 and 105 is still valuable. You can still use that to your advantage once you have your 2 quarterbacks locked in. So, you know, do you take the wide
Yeah.
receiver in the draft? Do you package the 105 like you said, and an Amari to go move yourself up, get yourself a Devonta Smith, maybe?
And start 11, so, like, he needs the depth too. I mean, giving away 3 guys, you're getting 3 guys, so
Yeah, but that quarterback, the getting that's having that second quarterback
I'm
locked
okay
in
with
is
yeah.
super important.
That's what I'm saying. You're losing Garrett Wilson, but it's a start 11, and you still got the 103 and the 105. So I think I like the 2 quarterbacks here. I like the 2 quarterbacks on the 203. Give me that side.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'd lean that way as well, but man,
'Cause then you
saying
still
bye-bye
have
to
Levis. Then you still have Levis. So you see
who
what's
is the
there at the
starting quarterback.
103. You can
Yeah.
always move the 103 also. So yeah, I mean, I probably taking the 2 quarterbacks. That's a tough one though. It's a really good question. Cav said, any worries about Justin Jefferson not coming to terms in Minnesota? I feel like it's underplayed. I don't think so. I mean, I think we're gonna pay him, and we have to. I mean, fucking city will revolt. I'll fucking revolt. They
You said that before. You said you're not having it.
we're not having it. We're not playing that. So yeah, we're gonna keep our guy. I don't think we're pulling off no type of Titans AJ Brown situation where we're getting rid of him. I don't think that's happening.
For peanuts?
So I think that's why it's probably underplayed because I think realistically, it just doesn't make sense for us to do that. Our league saves fives, need some help are obvious. Mahomes, Mixon, Pickens, Flowers, Tank Dell, Addison.
Mixon's gone, so you're keeping Mahomes, you're keeping Flowers, you're keeping Tank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you only need to drop one of these guys.
Yeah, so
Mixon.
yeah,
Bye-bye
dropping
Mixon.
Mixon. Oh, good. Kiddo said Kyler's good for 7 games the next 3 seasons. I mean, he
You know what,
hasn't
kidda?
really
I
missed
feel you
that.
on that, bro. I feel you on that, but
I know.
he still holds value, which is can't undersell that.
Yeah, Mystic said don't got to start a tight end. So yeah, tight end doesn't really mean much either. I mean, for that situation. Remove Kyler, get some other pieces, or you take that trade and then move Kyler. I mean, you don't have to like Kyler, but then you trade Kyler if you want. You know, whole bunch you can do. Oh, Nikki said Jordan Love's a bum.
You know what, Nikki?
Let's
You used
go.
to be Nikki used to be very welcome in this show. I'm gonna start to change that tune. Did you see what Jordan Love did last season? I
Nope,
don't know if you were
nope.
there.
We didn't
Se-
Hammer. We
second in
didn't.
the league in touchdowns, led his team to the playoffs, waxed the Cowboys, and should have beat the goddamn 49ers. Nikki, we're gonna talk about that. Don't highlight that and get all excited. Who's your quarterback? You wish you had Jordan Love on your team.
Oh yeah, let's put it back up there. Jordan Love's a bum.
You keep that on there 3 more seconds, I'm hopping off this show right now.
I don't care. I'll end it.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? Alright.
Fucking guy. Trying to see if he'll take the 105 instead of G Willie in that trade. I don't know. That's tough. It's about just kind of
Lateral?
what he's worth, but that still guarantees you either a top 2 wide receiver or a top 3 quarterback. I mean,
Mhm.
or top 3 wide receiver to whatever, however you want to do it. But so I'd rather keep the 105. I think unless you just love G Willie, then I guess I'm okay with that. I just feel
I
like
could
that
see
105 but just gives you a little more flexibility. Like the value is just going up and up and up, right? So yeah, so here you go. Keep Burrow and G Willie, draft whatever QB that falls for you after you draft neighbors at 3. Yeah, I mean you got so many options that you can do here. So I, do you need to make this trade right now? Like probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. But I'm honestly okay with either side. I mean, however you want to play it. Love is mid. Yeah, yeah. He's not better than Mahomes. No, Nikki, don't you dare.
See, that's where I have to stand down. But Love is fucking awesome, dude. He played well.
Yeah, said look at the teams with the 101, 102, see what they need. I have the 103, 104, where these dudes have 2 to 3 top 15 QBs. I dare them to draft Caleb. Yep. That's true too. Knowing your league and your teams, right? I mean, I guess that's a whole
Yeah.
nother episode we could have with where you're just, you're looking at those things, right? Who's got the top picks? Like, what do they need? Do they need a
It
quarterback? Do they
matters.
need do they need a wide receiver? Like, you know,
Definitely matters.
are we going to, let them decide? Like, are they really going to take the QB or what? if they've got already, 2 top QBs or 3 QBs already. So Nikki said she's got Stroud and Burrow. That's good. A good tandem. Who else didn't we talk about yet?
Yeah,
What
boy,
did we miss?
Zay.
Zay Flowers. So let's pull up Zay.
Solid.
Zay Flowers, 108 targets, 77 catches for 858 and 5 tutties. Finished as wide receiver 31. Started off the season like hot, like the first 6 games or something like that. Like kind of really involved in the passing game, getting a ton of targets, and then he kind of like wandered off for a while and then kind of picked it up a little bit, a couple games towards the end of the year. But
Down the
right
stretch, he was
now,
really good. 4 out of his
yeah.
last 5 games, he had a touchdown.
hmm right now, wide receiver 22 on keep trade cut. So, right, kind of in that wide receiver 2 range. Now you've got Andrews that's coming back, right? Do they add another wide receiver? Like, do they really see Zay Flowers as their like number 1 wide receiver? I don't know
Tough to think
necessarily.
so.
Being that they got Andrews, like I could see another wide receiver going in there. So again, Zay Flowers, one of those guys where can we tear up? Can we move off? Like, is he going to maintain this kind of value where he's in the top 24? They try and get the ball in his hands. They try and get it to him at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. He can also run routes though too. But when you've got Andrews taking that, or you've got another wide receiver and you're keeping Zay Flowers short, I mean, I don't know. What do we think Zay Flowers can be? What's the ceiling for Zay Flowers? Is it really a wide receiver 1 finish?
Probably not, because don't forget, right? They also just brought in Derrick Henry. Like,
Mm,
let's not overlook that. I'm not saying
true.
This is Derrick Henry from 5 years ago, but I would imagine that they, will have a concerted effort to run the ball, right? Lamar is still a threat with his legs as well. So there is some limited upside for Zay Flowers. Now, I view Zay Flowers as more of a boomer bust wide receiver 3 in my estimation, just because the nature of the Ravens offense
Mhm.
and, he's a fairly small guy, 5'9", 182. So he doesn't profile as a wide receiver 1 on any given team. And listen, Baltimore might bring somebody in, right? They may draft somebody, they may do some other things. So he's in the wide receiver 3 range for me, but he does have some wide receiver 2 upside. He didn't really, I mean, outside of the last 2 games, essentially, really didn't go crazy on you, right? He's not a needle mover per se. I think he's really good. He's solid. I do like him as a NFL wide receiver, obviously, but he's not going to move the needle enough to be that guy.
How much
So
how much more that's my thing is like how much more can he necessarily get in a year where Andrews was kind of gone and Lamar threw the ball the most times he ever has in his career and threw for the most yards he ever has in his career, right? Like how much more really can we
mhm.
expect to do now with a healthy Andrews, after we just saw Lamar throw the ball a ton and say Flowers still finish as wide receiver 31.
31. Yeah.
Mhm.
The
So
upside is limited. It's
I
definitely
think
limited, but
that's the tough part, right? So,
do you think people are overvaluing Zay Flowers?
um,
I've seen him
a
get
little
traded a
bit. I
lot.
mean, it's like all of the guys that's in this kind of range that we're talking about, the DK, the Zays, the Pickens, they're all kind of back end first round picks as far as what their value is worth. Um, you could say that Zay you might feel comfortable with as like in that wide receiver 3 slot and say, "Hey, he's just my wide receiver 3. I'm comfortable with that," and boom. But can we expect wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1 numbers? I mean, maybe some wide receiver 2 weeks, maybe a wide receiver 1 week here or there, but I don't know. It's tough to envision overall when, like I said, Lamar threw the ball the most he's ever has. There was no Andrews. So
But
I think
like you
that's the
said,
tough part looking at it like that.
his production, it comes and it goes. Like, he'll have weeks where he'll have 10 targets, 11 targets, and then he'll have weeks where he has 4 targets, 1 target, 4 targets, 2 targets, 3 targets. So it's essentially a roller coaster type of season where, you want that consistency from, essentially what we think is their top. Well, he's really their second receiver because obviously Mark Andrews commands the top targets from Lamar Jackson. So it's going to be a roller coaster, and his upside is going to be limited. That's kind of just how it is.
Mhm. I mean, even with Henry there, like, I don't know if that changes anything for Zay Flowers, you know?
Yeah. I don't think it changes much either, to be honest with you.
So, can we tear up from Zay or can
I'm
we
sure
tear
there's people
down?
out there that would. I'm pretty sure there's people that would go buy Zay Flowers. Would you say he was keep trade cut 21?
22.
So all
So
these
right in
guys we
that
talked
range
about are
of
kind
the,
of in that same range,
Rashid
20 to
Rice,
25.
Addison, DK, Pickens, Tank Dell, T. Higgins,
Would you rather
all in
have
that
Rashid
range.
Rice? Would you rather have Rashid Rice or Zay Flowers?
I'd rather have Rashid Rice.
Tank Dell or Zay Flowers?
Give me Tank Dell. Give me
Little
Tank
hitch in
Dell.
the giddy
I'll
up.
take that offense. Give me the explosive offense, even though he's the wide receiver too, right?
Yeah, I feel
I'll
it
take T. But I mean, even when you are talking about guys like maybe G. Higgins, DJ Moore, Devonta, can we get a piece on top, like, and move down to one of those guys? We've talked about that pretty much all show, just tearing down or trying to tear up, right? Can we get to that next
Mhm.
level? Why they're valued this high? I mean, what if this season, say Flowers goes out there and has like, I don't know, 700 yards, or he has the same season, Andrews kind of comes back, takes over. He finishes, wide receiver 30 something again. I don't think we can make excuses like we can like some of the other guys like we have like, London and Garrett Wilson, right? So that's really gonna hurt him. Like this is a real an important season, I think, for Zay Flowers right now.
For sure. But I think he's pretty safe, like you said, in that wide receiver 3 range because, you have to look at the surrounding pieces, the offense that they run on. Now, I know they revamped the offense obviously last year when they brought in the OBJ, they drafted Zay, et cetera, but I think it just feels limited in terms of his upside. Now, can he still be good? Can he finish at the back end of wide receiver 2? Like, is there a scenario where he finishes 22, 24? Sure. Would I bank on that? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, if he does, then he still stays in the same range. Like
Mhm.
that's all it does, right? That's all it does. Mystic said he's got Allen, Kyler, and Stroud. Nobody wants to buy Stroud. Nobody wants to buy Kyler. I'm stuck. Don't want to sell. Yeah, just hold him for now. I mean, nobody's scoring
No,
points right now. So when there's teams out there that are struggling to start a super flex quarterback, that's when somebody's gonna want him. I was telling them that he has to run the system. They struggle when they unleashed him. That's when he was lit. Yeah, love.
if you look at that bye week for Jordan Love, that bye week, after that bye week,
Mhm.
money in the bank, baby.
See that, Nikki? She's like wide receiver 15, ceiling floor as current ADP.
15 ceiling seems pretty high.
It does. It does, but you never know. Maybe he starts running deeper routes. I don't know. 10 teams start 13. All right, Diaz, 2 super
Damn.
flexes.
Diaz
Inbox
always has these
offer.
crazy
Give
leagues that he's in.
Deshaun. because he's got older Deshaun Watson stakes. Amari, Walker 307. Get Josh Allen 207. Have Mahomes and Herb. Team is loaded. Won the ship last year. All right, so you won the ship. You want to give up Deshaun Amari, Kenneth Walker, and the 307. You're
To
getting
get
Josh Allen
Josh,
for that? How the fuck? I mean, yeah, I'll take Josh. I mean,
and then he said he wants to sell Allen for a top 4 wide receiver plus.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm doing
do it.
that. I'm fine with that.
Do it right now.
Mhm. Yeah, that seems kind of cheap for Josh Allen. I'll definitely take Josh Allen for that. And then figure out what you want to do with the quarterbacks or who you can trade. Yeah.
Oh, Mahomes, Herbert. Uh, shit. I'd try and trade Herbert. Now you'd probably get a little bit less if you stack Mahomes and Josh Allen. Shit. But you'll get more for Josh Allen, obviously.
Well, and it's a 10 team too, so he's gonna have to move like Allen or Mahomes. Like, I don't know how many people is gonna be excited to go give a top wide receiver for Herbert. So,
Well, he said he meant sell
oh,
Allen, so
sell
he was
Allen.
trying to commit. Oh, I mean, he just said Josh Allen, so
But yeah, I don't know. I'm so lost.
am I. So Mystic has Allen, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and CJ Stroud that nobody wants to buy. Kyler. So he said sell Allen for a top 4 wide receiver. Plus. You could do that. I would be hesitant, but
We said you
you
can
could see what's
start
out
3
there.
QBs. Wait, what the?
True. So
So
a
yeah, I
quarterback
mean,
and 2 super flex spots. So that's an easy dub.
yeah, I mean, at that point, I probably wouldn't even trade Josh Allen. That's interesting. 3 quarterbacks, but
A whole lot of points being scored. And what, 10 teams? Damn. Being able to start 3 quarterbacks.
yeah,
Those
but
quarterbacks become like fucking absolute gold if you have them, especially 3 of the top 10, we think.
mhm. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for tonight. Let us know any other questions you guys got in the chat before we get up out of here. But
Man,
yeah, I
I'm
mean, we
super
are
excited for this draft.
we're closing in on the draft. Getting closer and closer. What's gonna happen?
I love this time of year because they just try and make shit up. Like, oh, is Marvin Harrison gonna go number 1? Is like they just try and make shit up. Like teams are just leaking all kinds of nonsense
Mhm.
to stir the pot, create
Well, I
news.
heard the Giants. I heard that the Giants leaked nonsense about JJ McCarthy so that he could go up boards. And now the Vikings are like, all right, we might have to get in front of them. So if they trade with the Chargers, that leaves Malik Neighbors to go to the Giants. Like, there's this whole
It's a cat and mouse
big
game right
thing
now.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game of cat and mouse. I know I don't remember what it was, but they had a bunch of the coaches talking, and I saw Brian Dable talking. I had it on mute because I was doing some work, but like they're just all putting out information to mess with other teams and drive the prices up and stuff like that. So it's all bull jive.
Yeah, Sky Moore he's done. No more Sky Moore. Sky Floor now.
Sky way under the floor,
Yep. Yeah, Rashid came in and took that slot role
snatched it right
where
up,
we were projecting Sky and just took off with it. So
real
Sky
quick.
was a L. We had to take that one on the chin.
Whoa, pause.
Yeah. Oh no, it's actually no Diddy now.
Yeah, I heard that. It's funny. I was in the barbershop today, and they were like, some guy said something. He was like, "It's no Diddy now." That's pretty funny.
You got Christian Watson. You got no choice but to hold Christian Watson, I think, right now. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get anything for him. Nobody wants him. You just got to hope that his value goes up and he's healthy in the season.
Or if he has a big game or two, have at it. I traded Christian Watson. I had enough of his shit.
Oh, shit. All right, guys, we're getting up out of here. We'll see y'all next week, 10 Eastern. We'll do it again. Jamari
Boom.
Thrash is this year's Puka was the funniest take I heard. Yeah, no, I don't think there is a this year's Puka. I mean, what people have to understand is that Puka, Tank Dell, like these are outliers. These are
Anomalies.
not
Yeah.
normal things that happen every single year. Like, and there's not going to be really
Fact.
one of those guys this year. It's not. It's very rare that those things happen, and we were lucky enough to kind of get like two in 1 year, and everybody's kind of going crazy about it. But you can use that to your advantage too, right? I mean, people are like love third round picks now, fourth round picks now. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go get the next Puka. Like, okay, go ahead. You know, um, but yeah, guys, we out. Packers suck.